What's up, challengers? Welcome to the gym. My name is Gym Leader Geo, and in today's video, we're going to go over the full roster of the San Francisco GiEnteis in the Season 4 of the GBA. For those of you that don't know, this is the Global Battle Association, a Pokemon Draft League that I was invited to, that I've been a fan of since Season 1, and I'm so glad to finally be in here with all these great people since the breakdown of Season 3. The season ended a little early. It's been a lot of reformatting, and the draft rules have kind of changed. So I'm going to go over those with you guys now, and then introduce you guys to my team. I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible, but there's a lot I want to say and get off my chest, so I predict this video will be a little bit long. So if you guys want to fast forward to certain parts, that's totally fine. For those of you that don't know the draft rules, though, I'm going to go over those now. So as you guys can see, I have the rules up on the screen now. I'm just going to go over them with you guys as quickly as I can. This system is changed from the original draft system where it was just draft anything you want. What you now need to do is you're given 1,000 points for drafting regular Mons and 180 points for drafting a Mega. You have to draft a Mon from every one of the tiers that we've created. Now, the tiers are essentially just bringing over the Smogon tiers, OU Pokemon or OU. The difference is we split OU into OUA and OUB. Then we have BL, UU, RU, and NU, just like normal Smogon tiers. There's been a few Pokemon who have moved around based on their viability in this structure, of this, and a few other Pokemon that have been moved around in tiers in order to discourage certain playstyles that are not fun for the viewers to watch. So that's not too many Pokemon though, so I'm not going to go into that too much. For the most part, if you look up a Pokemon on Smogon, the tier that it's in is going to be the tier that it's in our system. We banned a few Pokemon, which you can see on the bottom. This was voted on by all of the members of the GBA, all of the current 12 members. We voted, do we want Deoxys D, Deoxys S, Greninja, and Aegislash banned, and everyone agreed that we did. All the Megas that are banned by Uber usage are also banned in our system. Other than that, you're drafting in a very similar manner that you were before. You get your pick, you wait until your next pick, people pick up Pokemon, you build your team that way, creating a very interesting meta. The 1,000 points I talked about earlier become significant when you factor in this fact. You need a Pokemon from every single tier, which means if I draft a Pokemon from OUA, which is the top tier, top threat OU Pokemon, that's going to cost me 180. If I grab a Pokemon from every single one of these tiers, I'll have 6 Pokemon and I will have spent 600 points. That's mandated. You have to have a Pokemon from every single tier. With the remaining 400 points I have, I can draft any Pokemon I want. You only get 1 Mega, and we're still maintaining the forced Mega Evolution on the first turn rule. But with those remaining 400 points, I can draft extra Pokemon from any tier that I want. So if I want 4 more BL Pokemon, I can get 4 more BL Pokemon. If I really, really wanted another OU Pokemon, that's great. Pick up an OUA. The importance here is that, you know, people might think, oh, I really want an OUA and I really want an OUB. Well, if you do that, you're left with only 80 points, which means your last 2 Pokemon are going to be 2 more NUs. Now, that's not to say NU Pokemon can't be good, can't be viable, but there's a reason that most Pokemon drop to NU, and it's not because they're top tier threats like OU Pokemon are. So you need to figure out, do you want a roster of 11 strong, or do you really want to grab as many OUs as you can and build it that way? There's a lot of strategy to it in that sense. At least I think so, and many of us in the league do too. So there's no round that you're forced to draft anything in. In the past, of course, we might have mentioned that you have to draft the Mega in the final round. You don't have to do that anymore. You can get them in any order that you want. And that becomes significant when you factor in things like the OUB and the BL tier. They have good Pokemon in there, but they're very small tiers. There's only about 20 Pokemon in each, which means that if you wait too long to pick up your BL Pokemon, most of the good or the best Pokemon in that tier are going to be snatched already. But by that same token, the top OU threats are going to be really sought after, and so if you wait too long to draft those, you might end up not getting the perfect Pokemon from those tiers. So you need to balance it out that way, and I think it's a really great system. And now I'm going to get into showing you guys who I picked for my team. So here's the roster, guys. Your Season 4 San Francisco GiEnteis. We've got Scizor, Ferrothorn, Goodra, Gyarados, Politoed, Scolipede, Electivire, Ditto, Moltres, Misprit, and Mega Swampert. Now, the first thing that jumps out to everyone, the elephant in the room that I want to discuss really quickly, it's a rain team. And I want to tell you guys that while there is a drizzle Pokemon here who can set up rain, and that there's a good chance that I'll be bringing rain to a lot of battles, I want to point out that my team is not exclusively a rain team. I'm not Kote. If you looked at Kote's team, that was a rain team. To the degree that if he's not in rain, a lot of his Pokemon are not threatening. Swift Swim Kingdra. When it's raining, devastating. When it's not, you're kind of wishing he was Sniper Kingdra at that point, aren't you? It's not a very dangerous Pokemon. Its base stat totals are relatively low. It's not super hard hitting, it's not super fast, and it's not super defensive. Kabutops, also not that scary outside of rain. It's an NU Pokemon outside of rain, basically. And you look at the team that way. For me, I have Pokemon that can be threatening inside the rain and outside of the rain. I want to take advantage of the rain when it's beneficial to me, but I also want to build my team in a way that it's not forced to bring rain. So I'm pressuring my opponent to decide every week, what threats do I need to prepare for? Do I need to prepare for rain? Do I not prepare for rain? If some Pokemon on my opponent's team bring a bunch of moves that are beneficial in the rain, they might not get to use those. You know, they might be slotting Thunder instead of Thunderbolt on an electric Pokemon only to find out I didn't bring the rain, and now they're running the risk of running Thunder over Thunderbolt. Losing that consistency, things like that. I wanted more than anything else when I was drafting this team, because I didn't know I was going to be drafting a rain team at first, and I'll get into that a little bit later. More than anything else, I wanted Pokemon with very few weaknesses overall. I wanted Pokemon that could be resilient, had good base stat totals, and I wanted to make sure that every single one of my Pokemon I had was viable and could be brought to the battlefield. And you'll see that I think I've achieved that really well. I think the Pokemon I grabbed from the lower tiers have incredibly high base stat totals and are really only there because of usage. A good example is Electivire. Electivire 2 generations ago was OU and a huge threat in OU. He dropped down to NU because of usage, not because he's a bad Pokemon. He's got good stats, he's lacking in speed, like barely by a few IVs, but these are things that can be patched up, you know? He's still a good Pokemon. Ditto is kind of my wild card Pokemon, I'll go into that, but Moltres and Mesprit, those are legendaries, and they're from the lower tiers for interesting reasons. Moltres because he's outclassed, Mesprit because he's just got slightly worse stat distribution than, say, a Mew or his partner Azelf. So I've got Pokemon that have great move pools, have really solid base stats, and just happen to be in lower tiers, and I'm really happy with how that worked out. But the big thing here I want to illustrate is the point I made earlier, that I wanted very few weaknesses. Look at my team, guys. Look at it. One thing that popped out when I made my first 2 picks is, oh, he picked up Scizor and Ferrothorn. He's really fire weak. Well, I mean, I'm not really fire weak when you factor in these guys, right? I mean, look at that. Look how many fire resistances I have. And the rain is just going to help that even more. It's not just safe switch-ins that I have for fire type attacks, it's that I have fire dampening ability and stuff like that. So, but more than that, look at the totals. If you don't include Ditto, and you probably shouldn't because it's just going to become whatever Pokemon I switch in on, I have 10 Pokemon that total 22 weaknesses. Just 22. That's about 2 weaknesses per Pokemon. That's really safe. And on top of that, those 10 Pokemon, not including Ditto again, have 56 resistances, like 5.5 per Pokemon. That's a lot of resists. That's so many resists. I have plenty of options to scout, to switch, and I can gain massive momentum by forcing weak attacks out of my opponents. That was part of my goal with this team. So when I first started with Scizor and then picking up Ferrothorn, I knew that I had to cover those weaknesses, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that I was very safe. And so this full team has that. But this is factoring in Pokemon with a lot of weaknesses that are on my team, like Scolipede and Mesprit. If you only count the 5 core members who really solidify my rain team, which is Scizor, Ferrothorn, Gyarados, Politoed, and Mega Swampert, you'll see that those 5 core Pokemon have a grand total of 8 weaknesses between them. 8. Just 8. They have 34 resists and 5 immunities. They have almost as many immunities as they have weaknesses. And that's not even counting the rain at all. I didn't even count the rain about its ability to dampen fire type attacks. They are very, very safe Pokemon. and I'm really happy with how that turned out. So I'm going to go into individual Pokemon now, one at a time. So my first draft pick was Scizor, as you can see here. And Scizor was drafted following a really big change to my whole draft. My whole draft got turned upside down because my first 2 picks that I had and my entire team concept kind of revolved around getting a different first pick, which was Heatran. I really wanted Heatran, and I knew he was going to be sought after, but I thought he would slip his way down to 7th pick, and unfortunately he did not. And old man Tup picked him up as the 3rd pick of the draft. So I had to change my plans there because my first 2 picks, ideally first, second round, what I really wanted was Heatran and Mega Venusaur. I wanted the Venotran core. It's very strong, and I wanted to build with this team a core that had both Fire, Water, Grass and Fairy, Dragon, Steel. A lot like what Pokemon ended up doing with his team. That was my original draft goals. I wanted Heatran, Mega Venusaur, I wanted, I believe, Florges, Salamence, and who am I missing? Slowbro. And, you know, with the ability to switch in and out some of those Pokemon, if I couldn't get them, maybe Goodra instead of Salamence, and, you know, if not Slowbro, maybe Milotic, and if not Mega Venusaur, then maybe Amoonguss. But that was my goal. I wanted that core. So after losing those picks, the pressure was kind of on. And bear in mind, this entire draft I was working every single day. So I didn't have a lot of time when it came to be my draft turn to do a lot of research. So I had to think kind of on the spot with a lot of these things and do some of these calculations in my head. And what I knew is Scizor has been a very serious threat to the MVP race every single season and in multiple leagues. He's powerful. I have tons of experience using him. He's one of my favorite Pokemon to use, and he can play the item game really well. This is what led me to pick Scizor over Mega Scizor at the beginning. And remember, I didn't know I was making a rain team at the time that I picked this Scizor. So I knew I wanted his power. I knew I wanted his priority. I knew I loved his typing. I love Bug Steel typing so much. He's got great stats. I can play around with him. I can give him an Assault Vest, make him defensive. I can give him Leftovers, make him defensive and support. I can give him Swords Dance and Roost, and I can have him be a booster. I can give him choice items. There's a lot of potential for him. He's a defogger. He's got so much utility, so much power, priority. It's everything kind of that I wanted on my sets. I just really love playing with him. He's been one of my favorite Mons since Gen 4 when he got Bullet Punch. And I knew that if I started off with him, I'd be happy no matter what. He was a great threat, and I can build an offensive core around him. He's got U-turn if I want to build a Volt Turn core. And I had enough time after I picked Scizor that I could plan out my next few picks and sort of figure things out. So I picked him kind of quickly, and he's still, to date, probably one of my happiest picks of the entire draft. Pick number 2 was Ferrothorn. Now, Ferrothorn was a pick because I wanted a wall that could kind of do a little bit of everything. And in retrospect, it's actually the pick I'm least happy with and least proud of for the entire draft. You can get bulk that is as respectable, as similar, as powerful as Ferrothorn's in other tiers that aren't OU. I wasted an OUB pick grabbing him, and while I think he is amazing on rain teams, I think I could have gotten away with getting a lower tier, lower expense threat to be my wall. But, you know, I made the pick, and there's still benefits. He's not a bad Pokemon, and I can use him well. I know that. So what I came to do at this point in my draft was I looked at this, and I sort of looked at my 2 picks. This is right before I drafted Ferrothorn. I really looked at this pick as the defining moment where I thought to myself, hold on, am I doing this? Am I going to draft Rain? A lot of Megas had gone. I had to do my research. You know, I counted how many Megas had gone, and it was 5. 6 remaining, not including myself. And I looked at this situation objectively, and I thought, okay, if I get this, I can start working towards a Rain team. but I don't have to commit this early. If I have Scizor and I have Ferrothorn, these are good Pokemon outside of the rain. It would be risky to bring both of them to the same battle without a rain team, that's true, but these are Pokemon that can function outside of rain. They're strong Pokemon, and so I thought, okay, I'll pick up Ferrothorn, I'll work on sort of covering my weaknesses, which is something I do in team building anyway. I'll sort of try and cover my weaknesses over the course of the next few picks, and I'll see where this lends me. So that was Ferrothorn. That was my round 2 pick. Draft pick number 3 for me was Goodra, and this was the point of the draft where I was most scared and most focused. I didn't want to give away that I had Rain Team on my mind, but more importantly, I didn't want, this is the point where I really had to decide to myself, like, I don't want a team that's just a rain team. Like I said before, Kotei's team was a rain team. It lived and died in the rain. It needed Politoed, and it had a lot of Pokemon that weren't good without it, and I didn't want that. I wanted the benefit of the rain without being tied to it, and Goodra was the perfect Pokemon for me for this point of the draft. I knew it was a sought-after Pokemon. It had been used really well and had been a big threat on John's team in Season 3. And to me, I've always loved Goodra. He's a member of my Faithful Six, one of my tournament teams that I had good success with. And I didn't want people to be able to confidently predict me, so I picked Goodra because he's got 3 great abilities. I mean, Gooey's Hydration and Sap Sipper. Hydration's normally a toss-out one unless you have him on a rain team, but guess what? I got him on a rain team potentially. Sap Sipper is a great way to cover up grass weaknesses if I choose not to bring the massive grass resistances in Scizor and Ferrothorn on any given day. Gooey is a great way to play speed games with taking out primary threats. He's got Mantra Special Defense, an amazing move pool. Honestly, it's through the roof. Goodra's move pool is so good. He's got decent power in 110 special attack. His speed is middling, but you know what? My entire team is that way, and I don't mind. I've built my team to be okay with that. And the other important thing about this is I wanted to start building my rain team, start picking up rain threats without giving away that it was a rain team. Now, what I had so far was 2 Pokemon very weak to fire. So picking up this, people's first instinct was, there it is, there's the fire resistance, I called it. I mean, that's what all the tweets were saying, and following that, I knew that I was sort of in the right place with building my team without giving away too much of my strategy. So with Goodra, one of my favorite Pokemon from Gen 6, I'm super confident using it, super happy to have him on my team. I got that dragon that I really wanted. I really like having dragons on my team. It's still an amazing type to have, even despite fairy weakness coming in and kind of throwing it through the loop a little bit. I know what this Pokemon can do, and I'm so happy to have it. So let's move on to pick number 4. My 4th pick in this draft was Gyarados. Now, Gyarados was, it took me a second to figure out that this was the right pick for the right time. I was still juggling with when I needed to get Politoed. Only 1 more Mega had been picked up since the last round, and looking at that, I thought it's still dangerous for me to pick up Politoed and run the risk of getting Mega Swampert sniped, or vice versa. If I picked up Mega Swamp, I knew I had to pick up Politoed first, because if I picked up Mega Swampert, everyone would know I'm going to grab Politoed, and it's very likely he could get sniped because he could be useful on other people's teams. Mega Swampert, a lot less useful without Politoed, so I knew I had to maximize my efficiency of picks and not give away that I was drafting a rain team, and also still non-committal. Gyarados is a great Pokemon. He doesn't need to be in rain. In fact, most of the time he's not typically thought of as a rain team Pokemon. But there are massive benefits to the power of Gyarados in the rain, and I think he's got really great typing. I mean, look at that. He's got a mega weakness to electric, that's true, but I've got resistances there. He's got a weakness to rock, I've got resistances there. He's got massive resistances to fighting, which is great, an immunity to ground, immunity to steel, fire, and water, like just really solid immunities all around, or resistances all around, and his stats are amazing. 125 attack, he's got really solid bulk, his abilities intimidate if I want to make him have safer switch-ins and give him more bulk, Moxie if I want him to be a late game sweeper. He's an incredible value pick also because he dropped down to OUB. And remember, I'm trying to maximize the value of all my picks. Almost every single pick has to be a good value pick for me. And Gyarados, he's an OUA top tier threat. He's dangerous. One Dragon Dance and Gyarados can sweep your entire team kind of thing. Like, you need to be prepared for a Gyarados, and somehow he's OUB, probably by usage. He's had a big fall from grace in usage since Gen 4, but Gen 4 and Gen 5 he was massively used. Very strong Pokemon, and also a Pokemon with great offensive and defensive and support utility. Good move pool. You can run him kind of bulky and give him Thunder Wave. He runs great substitute sets. He's got so many options, and people are going to have a really hard time preparing for that, I think. So that was sort of my idea behind Gyarados. I'm super familiar and comfortable using him. He was in my Gen 4 laddering team that I got really high with, and I think that's a really important thing in this format, is to have Pokemon that you're comfortable with, that you know how to use, that you know the move pools for, you know the ins and outs, and they have to be versatile. People hammer that into your head, and I think Gyarados has got it. So we'll move on to my 5th pick. Moving on to pick number 5, I picked up Politoed, but I want to talk through this round a lot because a lot happened. This pick came, I woke up really early in the morning. Most of the people doing the draft are kind of East Coast, so they're all awake, but I'm waking up really early to go to work. My next plan was to grab Salamence, and I didn't think he would get snatched up. The BL tier is very, very small, and most of the Mon in that tier don't really work well for my concept. I wanted bulk, or the potential for bulk, on almost every Pokemon. I wanted sturdy, strong, I want momentum grabbing Pokemon. I had Gyarados and I wanted a second Intimidator for a dual Intimidate core. I had 2 Steel types, so I really like Drag Mag as a concept. Unfortunately, once again, Tup sniped me by 4 turns, so I was pretty upset about losing Salamence. I really like Salamence, he's an awesome threat. I really wanted that Intimidate core. Moxie potential for late game sweep, just like Gyarados has. Physical and special threat, and at this point, still without the definitive plan to become a rain team, I thought it was a very good time to pick him up. And, you know, now at that time I had to ask myself a few questions. How important are the remaining BL Mons to my team? Do I need to go in BL now? And just pick a different BL Mon instead of Salamence? How important is it that I draft Rain, really? And what are my risks? I need to prioritize the Pokemon that are going to get picked up early if I'm running the risk of, you know, losing those to other people. So I literally didn't know what my round 5 pick was until the pick right before me, A-Drive, picked a Mega. And I said to myself, that's it. It's late enough. Mega Swampert's not really a snipe risk anymore. People are forced to use lower tier Pokemon to counter me at this point because most of them have drafted their OUAs and OUBs, so they're not going to be able to draft necessarily counter rain Pokemon at this point unless they're drafting, you know, lower tier Pokemon, like, you know, picking up Quagsires and stuff like that. I've run Rain before in Gen 5. I mean, who didn't? If you played Gen 5, I'm familiar with turn counting for it. I'm a fan of Politoed's move pool. And I was ready to prove to the world that, you know, there was a plan. There was a method behind this madness. People were still hating on the 4 times weakness. My picks, they're all good Pokemon, but where's the cohesion, you know? And this was that. And after this pick, my Twitter blew up. I gained like 30 or 40 new Twitter followers over the course of a few hours. I think I silenced a lot of people who ruled me out after those fire weakness picks. And despite my 3rd and 4th round picks being fire resists, I don't think that gathered enough from people. I think the timing of the Politoed pick was just right. Had I done it a little later or super last minute, I think it would have angered the league, and I don't know that anyone else wasn't still looking at Politoed, really. So I wanted to give people the opportunity to prepare for it, but I wanted to take away the option for people to take away my beneficial Pokemon. So if I'd picked Politoed before Goodra, for example, people might have been way more apt to pick up Goodra quickly because they know that he has hydration. They know he's good on a rain team. So I think the timing of it was right, and you know, I want to give the league the message that I'm drafting a rain team now, and see if you can stop me, kind of thing. I want to give them that option. I don't want to be the guy who snuck in Politoed as the very last pick or something like that. So I'm happy with the timing of everything. I'm happy with the response I got from the Twitter and GBA fandom community. So I think it was the right pick for me in the right round. So round 6, I drafted Scolipede, and round 6 was a really fun round for me. The story of it goes that I was at work, and it is a super stressful day for me, and I wasn't going to get home for a little while longer, and I hadn't set out to get this pick just quite yet. I knew it was on my mind, and it was on my outline, but I didn't know the timing. Twitter was blowing up saying, oh, why are we waiting for him? He's just going to get Mega Swampert. Obviously, he's drafting Mega Swampert, etc., etc. But here's the thing. At this point, I knew I wanted Mega Swampert, but I also knew no one was going to draft him from me, and I didn't need him. There are other potential Megas that would be good on a rain team, and again, outside of a rain team. So it would be a really unsportsmanlike move for anyone to steal Mega Swampert, so I wasn't worried about it. At this point, I'd committed Mega Swampert last round. I'm going Mega Round, the same way Coop did. And with my first 5 picks and Mega Swampert forming an incredible core, very few weaknesses, incredible power, my goal now was to force picks that made other people scared. Scolipede is something you need to prepare for in a team, and I want the type of Pokemon filling my roster to be the type of Pokemon that you look at every single one and you're like, I need to have an answer for that. I need to have an answer for that. You need to have an answer for a rain team against me. You need to have an answer for Scolipede against me now also. Because if I bring a Scolipede and you don't have a taunt or you don't have a way to phase me or anything like that, and I get some speed boosts and some other maybe swords dances passed to some people, you are in a lot of trouble. And that's hard to respond to, especially if I'm passing to bulky Pokemon. Look at my concept, my team concept. Super bulky Pokemon, a lot of power, middling speed. Not slow, middling speed. So if I get a couple of speed boosts passed from Scolipede, you've got a lot of problems if I'm passing to some of my bulkier Pokemon. So that was my idea behind Scolipede. I'm really happy to have him, and as it turns out, I picked him in just the right time because it looked like John, aka Pokemons, had his eye on them. He told me that I sniped him in chat later. So, really good threat. He's my definitive, I'm not always a rain team Mon, and I'm happy that I was able to grab him as late as the 6th round. He was a solid BL pick for me, and I'm really happy with him. Let's move on to round 7. Round 7, I grabbed Electivire. Now, Electivire I was really happy with as a pick because somehow he's NU. And this is exactly what I was mentioning earlier with regard to team concept. He's NU by usage, not because his stats don't make sense. I mean, look at his stats. They're really similar to Gyarados'. Really high power, not that fast, decent speed kind of in the middle of the road there. Great abilities. I mean, he's exactly what my team needed. I wanted an electric type Pokemon, I got an electric type Pokemon. And another thing about this round was I had to start looking at concept a lot. I have a core of 6 Pokemon at this point that I'm happy with. I could bring these Pokemon to every battle and still give a good running every single week. So I don't need core members. I need members that will fit the right battle at the right time. I want to be able to bring them in and not have them be the type of Pokemon that's dragging me down, you know? Electivire has a place in OU. He was in OU in Season 4. I think he fell to UU in Season 5, and then he dropped to NU now. So, you know, he's strong. He's a super strong Pokemon. And at this point, I had an RU pick and 3 NU picks. So this is where I'm going. And I knew I wanted to try and get an RU pick as soon as possible, but at the time I wasn't prepared to make my RU pick. I didn't really know what I wanted. I just knew that I wanted value in my pick, I wanted utility in my pick, I wanted fear tactics, and I wanted mind games. And I knew that I could get some of those with some of the Pokemon in the RU tier, kind of looking into it. I really wanted a Volt switcher. I wanted to continue to build a little bit of a Volt turn core, and luckily, Electivire had that. Another Pokemon I was looking at for this round was my RU pick was Rotom-Mow, but I really didn't want another grass type. I really didn't want another fire type weakness, and looking into him, I really just didn't see what he did for my team. He was a Will-O-Wisp, but, you know, I'm not going to draft a Pokemon just because it learns Will-O-Wisp. And he had Volt Switch, that's true, but he just didn't counter anything, so I wouldn't find any real reason to bring him any given week, and that's the exact opposite of what I want. I want Pokemon that can fit on the team, that aren't a drawback just because they're in NU, and I think you can do that with some intelligent drafting, so I grabbed Electivire as my first NU pick, and I was so excited with him. He forms that legendary Gyaravirre combo that's been around since Gen 4, You know, it used to be flavor of the month, but guess what? It still works amazingly well. He switches in, eats up that electric attack, gets a +1 speed to patch up that middling speed stat. Boom, he's got incredible coverage, learns Earthquake, he gets Pseudo Bolt Beam with his Elemental Punch combos, he gets Fighting type Stab, he's incredible, and I really like Electivire. I'm glad that I have him on my team. Let's move on to round 8. So, Moltres was my round 9 pick, and I gotta tell you, just to preface this whole explanation, this is one of my favorite picks I made in the entire draft. I'm so happy with this pick. But there's a little bit of a backstory to it. So, there was 3 picks left, and I was a little worried, because I was still looking for my RU, I knew I had another NU, and I was worried that I was losing some of the buzz that I'd created by drafting a rain team. People kept tweeting me with expectations of what and you know, advice on what I should pick next, and a lot of those picks were illegal. People telling me to pick Kabutops and Kingdra, and I couldn't do that. Obviously, I didn't have the points to do that. So I'm the new guy in the league, and nobody knows whether I'm smart or stupid. No one's really heard of me. No one knows my battle caliber or experience, and it doesn't mean I'm not reading people's suggestions, but they're giving me really obvious picks, and they don't know my team concept. I have my team concept in my head, and I was still a little worried that people were looking at me being like, oh, he's just making that pick to be different. He's going to draft crappy Pokemon just because he's trying to be different and confuse people. But I just had to stay true to my concept and trust that I'm making the right thing. So I looked at my team. I knew I still wanted good resistances. I knew I still wanted high value picks, but there were some things I needed. I needed a special attacker, and I'm drafting from pretty low in the tiers at this point, so it might be hard to find a good one. So I need a good special attacker. Another thing is Defog. I know Scizor can learn it, but I want more of it. And the third thing is, I don't have anyone that's going to abuse Hurricane in the rain, so let's look for someone who can do that. First thing that came to mind was Vivillon. Vivillon's a great Pokemon, learns, you know, really accurate Sleep Powder through Compound Eyes. It learns Defog, that's great. It can set up with Quiver Dance, get behind a sub, and it's nice and safe. You know, put someone to sleep and then set up behind a sub. The problem is he's not great in the 6v6 format. It's pretty easy to counter him. And he's really not that strong, and he's very frail. So he's going to have a hard time switching in, and that's not what I want in my team. I want Pokemon that have very solid cohesion, very good bulk, and I want really high value picks. He has a really low base stat total. He's just, you know, he's a one-trick pony. So that led me to keep looking, and I found 2 things, Articuno and Moltres. Articuno I immediately ruled out because his typing is absolutely horrendous, and his stat distribution is even worse. If I'm looking for a Hurricaner, Articuno's only got 95 special attack. That's the same kind of special attack that Electivire has, and Electivire is not pulling off any special sweeps at all. So Articuno, that's his highest attack stat. I'm like, no, I don't need him as a wall with really bad typing. He's not right for my team. Moltres, on the other hand, he's RU, and I was still looking for an RU pick that wasn't just going to be a throwaway. He fits my team perfectly, guys. He learns Hurricane. In the rain, that's 100% accurate. Out of the rain, he's still got powerful fire-type attacks. His stats are incredible. 125 special attack, really high. 90 speed is workable and very good for my team. His defenses are solid. 90 HP, 90 defense, 85 special attack. That's bulkier than Arcanine, and people run Arcanine as a wall all the time. I mean, to be fair, he has Intimidate, but Moltres has still got really good defenses there. And look at this typing. Look at these resistances he's bringing to the table. Another fighting type resistance, which I really wanted. A resistance to Fairy. I don't really need the bug and grass resist, but another ground type immunity, I'll take it. And he's only really weak to, you know, he's weak to rock, and sure, everyone's going to point out, like, oh, he's going to die as soon as stealth rocks are up. Well, yeah, I mean, people still draft Talonflame, and no one gives people crap for that. Like, he's a good Pokemon, and he's right for my team. And I'm just really excited to have him. I'm so excited by this pick. I grabbed a fire type that I really wanted, and now I've completed a fire, water, grass core. Moltres, I'm so happy with this pick. My happiest pick of the entire draft, I think. So, really worked out well for my team. And let's move on to pick number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, I picked up Ditto. And, I love Ditto, guys. I love Ditto. Ever since my possibility of joining the D-League when I was in the D-League tournament, one of the things I knew is I think I can pick up Ditto. I think he'll fly under the radar. I love Ditto. I think he's such a cool Pokemon. He's kind of... I mean, he's not really a joke pick. There's a purpose behind him, but I've just always really wanted to have him. And you know what? I hadn't decided my RU pick yet still, so Ditto was it was the right time for me to grab Ditto. He is the king of countering the uncounterable. If you look at a team and you just don't know what to do, or there's a risk, really serious risk of getting swept by a particular Pokemon, bring in Ditto. Be that Pokemon. Be that strength. Maybe take advantage and try and get rid of that Pokemon a little bit. Slap a Choice Scarf on him. You know you're going to be outspeeding. Give yourself a Focus Sash, and you know you're going to get at least one move off. You can run him as a lead, as a sweeper, as a support. There's a lot of options for Ditto. Round 10 of the draft was one of the hardest rounds for me. I didn't really know what I wanted going into this round. I had in the back of my head that I was going to pick up either a fighting Pokemon like Sock, or I was going to pick up the Swift Swimmer Armaldo. And a lot of people on Twitter were saying just grab Armaldo. And I looked into him and I thought, you know, this is great. He's got Swift Swim to patch up his bad speed. He's pretty strong. He gets priority in Aqua Jet, which is boosted in the rain, and he gets Rapid Spin. Sounds like a perfect match, right? But I had to ask myself, why would I bring him to a battle? What does he give me that I don't have already or that I need? And the big thing there was Rapid Spin is pretty useful to have, but who am I spinning for? My team isn't weak to Stealth Rock, or it's not really weak to hazards at all. I'd be bringing it for Moltres pretty much, to help Moltres get in safe. So if I'm bringing both those Pokemon, they're both rain sweepers for me. They're basically coming if I'm building a rain team. But that means I have to bring Politoed and Mega Swampert, and then I've only got 2 Pokemon left to patch up a lot of weaknesses, a lot of holes I have in my resistances. So he just didn't seem that good of a pick to me, and honestly, even with the Swift Swim, his speed is not that good. Basically, anyone with a Choice Scarf is going to outspeed him. So, and you know what? It just didn't fit my team. And furthermore, I've been saying this from the beginning, this is not a rain team exclusively. And he just didn't fit outside of the rain, and he didn't fit inside of the rain. And I want every single member of my pick to have the potential to show up for any match, rain or not. And furthermore, I want high value picks. I want good base stat totals. I want Pokemon that are NU because of usage reasons, not because they're not statted well. So I looked into the remaining NU Mon, and I saw a couple of Pokemon I like: Miltank, Musharna, Mesprit, and Uxie. And Miltank seems like a pretty good option. He's pretty bulky. He's got access to a good move pool, decent abilities, but again, why would I bring him? Because he's a tank? Because Ferrothorn's a better tank, and they have really similar weaknesses, but Ferrothorn has tons of resists. So, would it be because Miltank learns Heal Bell? Because Musharna also learns Heal Bell, and Musharna also learns Wish. So now we're seeing that Musharna is a better pick than Miltank is. But Musharna brings a fighting resist that I don't really need, and doesn't really do a whole lot else outside of that. So I wasn't finding a reason why I would need Musharna in the battle, because he doesn't have a lot of other support move pool moves outside of the cleric moves. So that's where I saw Mesprit and Uxie, the Lake Spirits guys. These guys are NU Pokemon with 580 base stat total. These guys are legendary Mon. They're really strong Pokemon. So I was really excited by the concept of drafting one of these guys. I looked into Uxie first. You know, he's like the NU version of Cresselia. He's got really strong defenses. Problem is he doesn't have very much of an offensive presence outside of running Calm Mind sets, which makes him very predictable, very easy to counter, and beyond that, Mesprit can do the exact same thing. They have very similar move pools. Mesprit can also learn Calm Mind, so if I wanted to boost, why not do it with Mesprit, who's only slightly less bulky, but significantly better on the offensive side. So he has that option. Mesprit has a great support move pool, and you know what? This guy, just look at him. He's basically the NU Mew. His stats are almost identical. He gains 5 in attack, defense, special attack, and special defense at the cost of losing 20 in speed and HP. He's got an amazing move pool just like Mew. He gets Levitate instead of Synchronize, which is kind of a decent trade-off. he's basically, the only reason he's not used more is because if most people would use Mesprit, they would just use Azelf instead. So I just picked up someone that's almost as good as Azelf for NU cost, and I thought that was perfect for my team. I'm really happy with this pick. I think he's right for the team. Now we'll move on to pick 11. Round 11, guys, there's not much I need to really even say about this. Mega Swampert, it was the right Mega for me, juggled with the idea of Mega Gyarados, but Mega Swampert was right. He's got incredible power, he's got typing that I really wanted. You know, that super weakness to grass is something that I have super resistances and immunities to. An immunity to electric, really solid resistances all around, important ones including rock. And just so powerful, guys. Look at that bulk. Look at that attack. His speed is through the roof with Swift Swim. It's just, he was perfect for the team. I've really enjoyed using him in my playthrough, and I want to keep using him. And I was really excited that he rounded out the team. So that's it, guys. That is my draft recap video. Let me know what you think about any of these Mon. Do you think I've got some unlikely contenders in there? Do you think there's anyone who doesn't quite fit? Someone that you would have picked differently? Let me know your suggestions. I'm interested to hear them. If you guys are SF GiEnteis fans, let me know that in the comment section down below too. I wanted to thank the GBA for having me in their awesome league. I've been a fan for so long. I'm really happy to be a part of it now. Guys, the league starts up in May 1st. Some of the first videos getting posted up as early as May 3rd. So, as always, my name's Gym Leader Geo. You guys are the challengers. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you guys next time.